everyone. This is Crystal Reflections. My name is Teresa Shrell.
It's okay. Do it again.
Well, I was waiting for you to go.
Oh.
You said introduce yourself. So
I'm Charmaine Thompson. Good.
today we're going to be talking about platonic relationships
Hmm.
and when dating, asking yourself, would you even be friends with this person? Um,
Hmm.
yep, I wasn't ready.
It's all good. We were talking about this topic, earlier today, and um the reason why we wanted to share it is because sometimes, it seems like it's obvious, right? But it's not always an obvious thing. I think that, you should look at somebody as a friend potentially first, before getting into a really serious romantic relationship. And, sometimes things happen quickly, but would you even really be friends with this person? That was a topic, a really huge topic and theme for me, because what I realized is that a few years back that there were a lot of relationships that I had, or not like there were a ton of them, but you know what I mean, like relationships that I've had where I would have never been friends with this person organically, right? We are not in the same circles. It was just attraction, right? And at the end of the day, I think attraction is fine, love is fine. I mean, lust, that's all those things, infatuation, that's fine, that comes along with love. But what gives a relationship longevity is friendship. So I found it to be very ironic for myself that um you know all these relationships that I had, I would say like at least like, I don't know, about 80%, 90%, I probably would never be friends with that person in life. And that is a statement to say, right?
Got to.
Right, right. And it actually kind of like hurt a little bit, because I was like, damn, like what were you thinking? Why would you be with somebody that you really technically don't like, when you think about it that way, right? If you don't like them enough to be a friend. So that's
Mm.
part of, you know, or some of the things that we discussed, right? Um, I don't know if you have anything that you kind of wanted to chime in about, but yeah, like I just feel like that is something that for me personally moving forward, that is one of the first things I'm going to ask myself. Would I even be this person's friend? Because if not, then we don't need to be talking about anything. Because I'll say this last thing. One of the things that I love to do, and I've loved to do this since I was a teenager actually, is ask people that have been in a relationship 10 years or more um how they did it. And there are always two things. There's like a common thread, but there are always two things that they all say, I promise you, like every time. And one of those two things is that they're good friends. And I've even had people go so far as to say that is what has actually saved their relationship, because they've fallen in and out of love with each other, but they were always friends. So, yeah. Yeah. Did you have something that you wanted to
I
say?
mean, it sounds like for me, like what I hear is in those long-term relationships, or the ones that were had longevity, there was a foundation of friendship. So
Mhm.
that when you built that on friendship, that foundation remains no matter what happens in the romantic relationship. So um for me, I say I don't know the percentage, but I know the end result is, a lot of times that we were close friends, and we built that friendship, whether it was the foundation or just by default there was a, or if it began as a friendship. um what I think I found was that what was hard for me to do is sever ties with that person because of the friendship. So it
I'm the
was
opposite.
right, like
I'll be
it
like, go ahead.
yeah, it's because of the friendship that it was harder for me to let go or release that relationship, because I wasn't just losing my partner or my lover. If it was just like, because you mentioned quite a few things, serious relationships, short-term relationships, ones that weren't serious, that were more lustful, like you said. But I think for me, always at the end is that hard break of, now I have to release my friend. And 9 times out of 10, I was holding on to that
Mhm.
friendship. Um, maybe even easily let go of the romantic part of it, or the intimacy. But that friendship was a different kind of companionship that was harder for me to let go of. So I think that in my case, generally I lean towards friendship first.
Mhm.
And even if it starts off as something other than friendship, eventually we do become more, I think the word companion comes to mind. I find that, we're doing things that friends would do, and again, it's harder to let that go because I'm not just losing my lover, I'm also losing my friend. In some cases it was my best friend at the time. um and full transparency, I just recently was, someone was trying to reconnect that was a past
Mhm.
lover and friend, romantically and platonic friendship, um where it became just platonic. And there was just something in me this time that said
Mhm.
no. um what I'm holding on to is no longer in existence. But if, to your point, I was married and we were going through hard times, that would be a healthier foundation to land on, and almost have the ability to build back up. So I think that your idea of, when you're dating someone, asking yourself, to me, constantly,
Mhm.
would I be friends with this person? um and dating with that foundation, like friends first. you know I think that that creates, like you said, a little bit of a solid foundation, or at least a starting point that affords the relationship to be long term.
Mhm.
But in my case, I did have the friendships, and I think it potentially would be different in marriage. But I don't know. I think it's important to have that friendship because you can always go back to that.
Yeah, it's foundational, and like you said, constantly asking that question. I do think that's important because it's like any friend, like, you build that, right? Over time. You go out, you do things, you talk,
Mhm.
you find that you have similar interests, things of that nature. And I think, even if you start out dating somebody and you also, let's say it's me and it's like, you know what, I would be this person's friend as well too, developing that, even like simultaneously,
Mhm.
at the same time, and seeing where things go. And I feel like that would take off some of the pressure, you know
I
what I mean? Because, there is nothing worse than somebody just like, I gotta have a relationship, I
Absolutely.
gotta lock this down. Like, man, you want to send me running?
I'm quite similar. I'm like, wait, you friends first. Like, can we
Oh,
just be friends? Can we
right,
just be friends? Or can we
right.
friends, please, friend? So,
Yeah. So,
I'm quick to, I I want to say friend zone, and it could give mixed messages like, I don't want to be with you, but it's like, nah, it's not that.
right.
I just want to get to know you. And I think, a lot of times people think they know you. in
Yeah.
those scenarios, and they're like, nah, let's get straight to it. And it's like, you don't even, for me personally, it takes time to get to know me. And so for you to rush that process, we can't even be friends because you don't know me.
Mm.
So this to me is gonna crash and burn anyway because you're not getting to know me intimately for real. Um through a friendship. So I
It's-
think that there's something about that if it's something that I think is going to be lasting or that I want to be lasting, yeah, it's better to have the friendship grow alongside that intimate romantic relationship.
Yeah, and I think it's very important too, and this is one of the premises behind Crystal Reflections, like
Mm.
that yin yang, it's that, opposite side of the same coin, with the both of us. We have opinions and experiences that are very similar, and we also have some that are different, and they usually complement or contrast, right, one
Right.
another. And so one of the things, and that's what I love about our friendship. And one of the things I would say to what you mentioned is that there's always this idea of like the slow burn is better. And
Mhm.
I do think that there is validity there. I absolutely do. However, everybody's makeup is not the same, right?
Mhm.
And some people can be intuitive, they can be quick, they can be decisive, and they know what they want. Especially at this age, I
Mhm.
know probably it's quicker for you now than it was at like 18, right? So we know, I feel like much more quickly. And I think as women, I will say this, men, I feel like have always had typically a better hold on that. I feel like being honest with themselves about what they think this relationship is
Mhm.
versus us, which, when you're younger, you start with the ifs and ands and you try to make things work and make it fit and it don't, that type of thing. And as you get older, you're like, nah, I know what I want. I know who I am and I know what I like and that ain't it. Right. So, and then when you do see, you're like, all right, I can explore this thing. So I went through all of that to say that even if something does take off quickly, I wouldn't dismiss it as um like a quick fast burn, you
Mhm.
know. That's the opposite side to the analogy that most people I feel like know, which is the slow burn versus the quick burn. But, I say just be who you are. I think that is more important than anything else. I've met couples and I can say that who I've asked over, over the years, and this is decades of me asking, where some of them they might have known each other since they were, children, and they wound up, being together for life, right? Somebody in my family, I didn't even know this. Man, they just celebrated 70 years together married. 70 years. I was like, "Whoa." That's a long ass time. Right? But,
Yeah.
um, there are some people that maybe they met and they just knew, you know?
Mhm.
And I believe in that. Like your soul recognizes their soul. I believe that. I believe that is what could potentially even happen with me. I'm going to know that I know that I know that I know. And so is that person. So that may present a different kind of situation or scenario versus, let me just feel this person out. But what would be important for me in that scenario is doing what you said, which is asking myself continually, whether this is fast or slow, would I be this person's friend? Would I still be this person's friend tomorrow? And I'll say this thing, which is the second part, or the number two thing that people always say when I talk to them, after being together 10 or more years, is accepting that person as they are. Can this person accept me as I am today? Not what they want me to be tomorrow, but today, and vice versa. right? Can I accept them as they are today? Because if not, right, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It doesn't have that longevity. Um so yeah, I know I said a lot. But it just it's I feel like it's just such an interesting subject because we have a lot of preconceived notions, and I think it's really just about getting back to you and what works for you, what's important to you. And I'll just say for me it's important that I'm this person's friend. Right? So yeah. Um
Yeah, I think without the friendship, it's hard for me to truly be vulnerable
mm,
and to truly show that person who I am to my core. And I think for me that takes time. Like even if it starts off fast and hard, like you said, um, it can either crash and burn or, that spark could get reignited. And I think that that's the kind of relationship I'm looking for that, you know, because I think part of when you say platonic relationships, that doesn't have anything to do with romance. That's straight platonic. So I know the difference between having someone as a platonic friend over time, decades really. I've had someone who, I've only been platonic friends with who is of the opposite sex, and that relationship still stands. Now we have ebbs and flows. Like sometimes we're super close, other years go by and we don't really talk and mingle. And I just think that um what that did was in early teenage years, it taught me the difference between what it is to have like a platonic, strictly friendship with a man versus, okay, I like him a little bit more than just friendship. I want to explore, like you said, more. But I think for me, because I know that difference so specific within me, how, like you said, getting back to myself, how I feel about that person, there's a slight difference when I want more. And I just think that um the type of friendship that one would need to have with someone who they want to spend the rest of their life with, 70 years, to spend 70 years with, um that's a level of, like, you 70 years, you're not, you said, accepting someone as they are today. Oh, 7 years, you're
that's
not,
a
that's
journey.
that's a long time. That person, 70 years, that person has changed over
Hmm.
so many times that you originally became friends with
Mhm,
and partners with.
mhm,
To me, it's really just not a friendship, but a true friendship where no matter if they do change. So yeah, I can accept you as you are today, but anything can happen tomorrow or next month or next year, 10 years. You said 70, we only at 10, 20 years, 30. At the age that I'm at, I'm changing as we speak. I could be in a different mood later today. Like real talk. And I need to know that this person that I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with not only can be my friend and in friendship, but understand, like, okay, that is not even who I knew 10 years ago, but I still love her. I still want to be with her, and I still want to live life with her. In 70 years, I'm 100% positive they had some ups and downs, and those downs were probably not easy to get through, and
yeah.
maybe not even the friendship. I
Mhm.
know that's our topic, but some days maybe that friendship didn't even hold them up. That it
Was
was
a
it
decision.
yeah, it was
Yes,
a commitment and a
yes.
decision that they made regarding that person. be even beyond friendship after 70 years.
Mhm.
Um, so even as the if the friendship is the foundation, um, if we look at our friendship, even there are times we had to kind of separate. You go in your room, I go to my room. We're not in good moods today, but it didn't sever the tie of the friendship. So I think even in those long marriages, you're gonna have to go to your separate spots to kind of cool down. And um I think it's just like you said, it's not just friendship alone. It's a decision that this is my friend. Like you said, when you ask yourself, would I be friends with this person? If the answer is yes, you move forward. But it's like, am I committed to this person?
Mhm.
Um, and answering that question the same way for 70 years, you know, um, I choose you. I choose to be with you in friendship, in love, in lust, in marriage, So I think personally I'm still kind of navigating this relationship long-term commitment thing because um I think because I've always kind of depended on the friendship, like I said, as the foundation. But what happens when you have that foundation? How do you respark that intimacy with that partner that you've chosen and made a decision to be with? Because if you sit in the friendship, that's not necessarily going to be even if it's the foundation or your go-to. There needs to be something to spark. I believe there
I
needs to be
agree with
that
that.
spark
Yeah.
where, yeah, we're friends, but what's going to spark that intimacy um beyond just friendship?
Mhm.
And I think that's something I'm navigating, because I tend to lean into the friendship, because friends are very important to me.
Mhm.
um but so is my partner. So how do I incorporate? What I'm thinking of is, at one point in a relationship, the person's yelling, we just feel like roommates.
Mm.
And to me, that's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, we roommates. If that's where we're at, friends, roommates, how do we get that spark going? Like, when you have that disconnect, which is another thing we wanted to kind of bring up, how do you spark that back up where it's beyond just friendship and that intimacy is coming back in? Because I think that that's something that, yeah, we're friends and we can hang out, but to me, I've run into the whole roommate situation where it's like, we're just roommates. I feel like I'm just with my roommate, and it's like, but what gets that spark back into that relationship where you're not just friends and you're not just roommates? um
It's a good question. I'm not gonna say that I have an answer, but the first, one thing that comes to mind is passion. Finding something that you're both passionate about, you know, whatever that thing is. And if it's something you already know, rediscovering it or finding something new. And again, to me, that goes back to you. What are you excited about? You brought up a great point. Like, people change, people
Mhm.
transform.
Yeah.
That's a natural part of life, change. Just like maturing and getting older, you're gonna keep having these like new versions of yourself. So it definitely is a decision, a constant decision. Do I, am I gonna stay with this person? And I do think that there is um sometimes people want people to remain exactly the same, and I feel like that is very limiting, and it can be controlling. And I think that there is a level of freedom that is necessary, right? to even kind of spark the flames, if that makes sense, right? Of like passion and things of that nature. There might be freedom in you having two different passions, you know, you do those two passions, your fires are ignited, you come back together. Maybe you do it together, whatever, you know, I don't know the exact answer to that, but it made me think of like fire, right? Obviously with the passion, and then air, right? Freedom. And there's something about that, you know, because air feeds fire. So it's like this freedom that needs to happen, I feel like, so that people can breathe and be in a relationship. I know that that is something for me that is huge and was a point of contention. Um, not feeling free in my relationship, you know, or free to be myself, you know, because they have this idea of you again, and you have to stay that way in order for it to be okay. It makes it safe for the other person. So sometimes when things like that happen, it can, you know, dull your spark, dull your fire, dull the love that you know, think or thought you had for somebody or felt, you know. So it's a very interesting subject, and I would be curious to ask couples that have been together, you know, successfully for a few years. I actually just thought of somebody that is around our age, and she has been with her husband since high school. And you know, I don't want to like share her story because I don't have her permission, but I would say this, that her story coincides with what you brought up, you know, that you change, and sometimes you change so much that, you know, you really have to sit back and evaluate and make a decision. You know, at some points it may be a little bit tougher than others, to say, hey, this person has changed a lot, and so have I. Maybe it's you, you know. um do I still want to move forward with this? Am I committed to moving forward with this? And yeah, I think maybe there's an answer even in that. Because when you make that decision, then you're gonna look for solutions. It's kind of like that, you know, when they say when you look for problems, you find problems. When you look for solutions, you find solutions, you know. So if you're making the decision, you're gonna find a solution. You know, I feel like for whatever works for you in your relationship to find that passion or that spark again. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't it's interesting the whole when I was younger, what I wanted is so different than what I want today. So that change is inevitable. And I think um when you say you know, find something you're passionate about, you know, I thought of the 70 years and the things that they had to endure or, you know, indulge in separately, like you said, or together to keep that relationship interesting. Um, not just again as friends, but romantically. Um, to me is mm, not even necessarily the spark or you know, the fire. It to me, it's just having the ability to continuously reconnect, whatever, whether it's some because sometimes it may not be passion. I'm thinking for a person like me, it may not be passion. It might be something as simple as you cared for me when I was sick, or like those. It's to me, it's more things like um day to day that I wouldn't overlook. I feel like that would spark that to remind me of the supports, you know, for me personally, the support. Oh, he's supportive, or he's there for me um when I was sick or when I was down, or um I think that's the stuff that to me even overshadows the passion at times. Um Because I'm thinking when you're mad at somebody or you're frustrated or irritated for whatever reason, um, the last thing you want to do is talk about what you're passionate about. Like, I'm passionate about how angry I am right now. Do think it's more, the everyday life stuff that will get in the way of that relationship
Facts.
connection,
Mhm.
and at the same time could also be used to reconnect you. Um, sometimes it's as simple as going back to the basics of why you originally chose that person.
Mhm.
And it's usually not, oh, that passion was whew, or even the freedom. Um, because there's something about that closeness that, yeah, I want to be in my space and free, but there was something that brought us together that can potentially keep us together. And I think that, um, I don't know, for me, simply, I think sometimes those sparks come back because of the most simple, um, the simpler, and I hope that to be true. I've never been married, but, you know, I've been in long-term relationships, and what kind of kept me was not just that base of friendship, but also being able to look at the person and go, this is why, if I'm looking at them, this is why I'm staying here in this, because of this that I actually appreciate in you. And I guess that's where you're talking about the friendship, because there's some quality or something that's core to their value system that really connected us from the beginning. And going back to something like that, I feel like can sometimes quite easily ignite that spark that kind of, and then you keep feeding that fire like you said. And that balance of a little space, I think, is healthy for me personally. I like space, but also kind of knowing me well enough to know when to fill that gap is important as well. And I think vice versa for those who I've dated, where it's like sometimes I let the gap get too big and unknowingly, severed there was hard it was harder to get that spark going again. So I don't know. I think so like you said, it's an interesting topic that I think, um, for that long term, intimate, romantic relationship, yeah, it does seem to me to be easier to navigate that when friendship is at the beginning. Um, Almost like a different kind of respect level is in place.
That is an interesting word because I believe that to be very true, right? Respect. Yeah, when you have a friendship, I feel like there is already a certain level of respect. And when it's just love or passion, lust, you know, um, or all of that all mixed together, you can easily fall into an area of, I want to say, disrespect. When you don't get what you want, or emotions are flared, or whatever the case is. But when somebody is your friend and your lover,
Right.
um your approach with them is going to be very different,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? So I think that's another reason why that's huge, right? um Another thing is with friendship, they're going to want to see you do well too,
Mhm.
just on a basic level,
Right.
so they're not going to, for the most part, I think, purposefully try to do anything to control you or to, bring you down, to manipulate. People are people, people, hurt sometimes. That's natural, right? That's a natural part of life. But um, when friendship is not involved in that respect level, you can find yourself in basically abusive situations, emotionally, mentally, physically, things of that nature. So it does it does make a huge difference I believe when you have that respect there.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll say, especially when you're dealing with a man, because um, I feel like respect is huge for both, right? Both the woman and the man, but for men in particular, right? Um, so yeah, it's a interesting subject, like you said. I mean, it's something that we could probably talk about quite a bit extensively, right? But it's also something that you want to experience, and just that whole, we've talked about that before, just being with somebody. I think today, especially, and we're good for that too, because we've been doing this a long time, that inner work, and just, having an understanding of relationships, and how things, like the narcissist empath dynamic, and attachment theory, right? All these different things, the five love languages, all that stuff is amazing. But at the end of the day, can you be with this person? Can you get out of your head and just be? And I feel like a lot of times people are really just kind of picking apart a relationship instead of pulling back and getting real simple about things, right? Um, would I be this person's friend? Like, that simple. and and if not, maybe I shouldn't be their lover either, right? so so yeah, I don't know if you had anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about regarding this subject.
Not much. I think two words came to mind when you were talking, and it's another two words that come to mind when you think of a friend is support. They usually support you, which is what you were speaking to, and care. Um, Genuine care for the person may not have you asking over and over and consistently, year after year, decade after decade, if you want to continue with this. Like, the decision was made 70 years ago. I'm
Right.
not gonna act like you know what I mean? Like,
Facts.
if you really care about that person, rooted in true friendship, that question, that ain't even a question. It's just, what we doing today? How we gonna get through this next 10 years? See you in 70, like, God willing.
Hmm.
Um, so that's all I just wanted to add to that. Yeah, I agree. I think my personality naturally wants to be friends first. Or at the very least be friends, period. Like, I want to get to know you. I want to be um understood in a way that is more intimate. So um yeah, I don't yeah, that's what I wanted to add. It's just those two words of care and support, which naturally, in a great friendship or good friendship, or a healthy friendship, um, and relationship, is that you genuinely care about the person, want to support them. And on those days when they are not lovable, that care and support is still going to get you to remain committed to your decision to choose them and be with them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So it sounds like a good place to wrap up to me. Well, thank you, homie. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening in.
Yes, thank y'all for listening in.